Professor Kondapalli, we have sense here as if resolution of border dispute is very difficult. The former NSA was in Beijing, December 2014, and he was talking to the student Peking University, and he said, I think we can do it because we have government in both countries today who have strong mandates and very clear strategic ideas where they want to take their countries. And he added, I think all the technical work has been done by Dai Mingguo and his Indian counterparts. I say it in India and I say it here. This boundary can be settled. It is time we settle. Quicker we do it, better. Professor Kondapalli.
Well, I think we have discussed the territorial dispute in 1963 times, from 1981 till 2015, 18 times, in addition to the 15 joint working group meetings and 8 border talks between 81 to 87. So I think each other's positions are pretty clear on the territorial dispute. There has been so much of discussion that has happened. So what are the reasons why there has not been any resolution? The Chinese used to say before that from 1984 the Indian political establishment doesn't have majority in the parliament, so no territorial dispute resolution can be passed in the parliament, which has to decide about the contours of a country, and various other difficulties related to the territorial dispute resolution. Now that you have a NDA government which has a majority, a simple majority, of course it doesn't have majority in the Rajya Sabha. So this argument doesn't really hold good, that the coalition era is the stumbling block for the territorial dispute resolution. The second difficulty is that, as you mentioned, Ambassador Kumar, both the leaderships are pretty strong. Xi Jinping today has 4 hats as the General Secretary of the party, President of the PRC, Chairman of the Central Military Commission, Chairman of the National Security Council Commission. So he's strong from the point of view of holding a lot of posts and the legitimacy that he gains out of the 18-party Congress and so on and so forth. In the case of India, we have as well a nationalist government here in Delhi, which means that these two, one of the factors for nationalism is obviously no one can afford to be seen as compromising on the territorial dispute. So obviously there is a huge structural problem in terms of this nationalism on either side. As Ambassador Mansingh mentioned, and Ambassador Sibal mentioned, from 2005, China had been configuring Arunachal Pradesh as southern Tibet. The argument is Tibet is a core interest, southern Tibet is an extension of that core interest. So in other words, we will resolve this as part of that core interest. So in other words, this has become complicated from the point of view of nationalism. Today, the situation is that Xi Jinping cannot resolve the territorial dispute with India, partly because of nationalism which has been whipped up in the past 10 years. So this is again a structural factor. Even in the Indian case, it is pretty difficult for the Indian establishment to resolve the territorial dispute based on these issues. So I think the territorial dispute, whichever way you look at, is not able. We are not able to resolve this dispute in the foreseeable future. So what can be done? One of the things is what successive governments have mentioned about peace and tranquility, meaning that we stabilize the borders through CBMs, through BDCA agreement, border defense cooperation agreement, and a host of other arrangements. However, these have also not really proved to, they have prevented conflict, but they have not been able to generate trust between the two sides. So these institutional mechanisms also had some limitations in the in the stabilization of the border area. So we got now stuck with these positions. So that makes it the whole issue complicated and probably a long-drawn affair. I also wanted to add one more aspect, which is that we have to see China now today not in the same glasses as we used to see China prior to 2014. 2014-15, China is displaying a substantial number of initiatives. Last November, they have conducted a political work conference for the foreign policy, in which Xi Jinping addressed this meeting, in which he suggested that henceforth Chinese diplomacy will be geared for protecting interests abroad, legitimate interests abroad. This is a language the United States uses in the QDR and NSS, National Security Strategy and the Quadrennial Defense Review. This is the language that China is using extensively, and this is reiterated in the white paper that was issued in May this year. In addition to the Silk Road initiative, China is today displaying a lot of initiatives, which means that Indian responses have to be at the strategic level rather than at the tactical level. Thank you.